Given we're moving in towards here in the Northern Hemisphere, the darkest day of the year, so this winter solstice, I thought I would do a little meditation on impermanence. It's always good to reflect on every now and then, particularly also since this healthy person, supposedly healthy person, ended up in hospital with pancreatitis. So it's just interesting to me anyway. So let's just let's just settle in. So close your eyes and allow yourself to land. Feet flat on the floor, about a hip's width apart. And you can feel the sensation of the floor under your feet. And the sensation of the chair underneath the backs of your legs. And your sits bones in your chair, shoulders aligned with your hips. And your ears aligned with your shoulders. And imagine your spine is this beautiful string of pearls of light stretching from the base all the way up through the crown of the head and beyond. And imagine you're lengthening your spine. And then go to the crown of the head and release any tension there. Relax the forehead, the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the area around the mouth, the jaw, the back of the tongue, the back of the head. And allow the shoulders and shoulder blades to drop down, relaxing the throat and chest and belly and all of your limbs. And then focus on the breath, noticing the sensation of the air as you inhale and exhale. The nostrils, the chest cavity. And just notice all the little sensations in the body as you breathe. And then just pay attention to sound in your environment. Maybe it's the creaking of your home, sounds from outside, sounds from inside, and then the potential for distractions, such as notifications on your phone or your screen. And we accept those as just part of our life, that something we have to respond to. But we can control that too. And then think about all these people of our life and our loved ones, these people we have these beautiful relationships with, and then people that we don't like so much, or we have aversion for, or we don't trust. And in this tradition, they refer to them as the enemy, which I find is a very strong word, but that's their label in the Lam Rim. And then there's the strangers. And these relationships, are impermanent. Even within a strong and stable, loving relationship, it changes. And there's always a possibility that the enemy will become a dear friend. But, however you feel about any one person at any one particular time, everybody's equal. All the sentient beings are equal, even the insects. You can see it, all looking for happiness, wanting to avoid suffering. And then they all have this unbelievable capacity for a Buddha mind. So we'll do this meditation on impermanence to increase our own awareness of our own internal dialogue. And also, as we're moving along our spiritual path, and we'll do it for all the sentient beings. So start at the physical, particularly here, in Australia, it's cooler in the winter and warmer in the summer, and, more green in the winter and less green in the summer. There's not much of a dramatic change apart from the temperature. But here in the Northern Hemisphere, you experience massive change from summer to winter, winter to summer, autumn, spring. And particularly here in the Bay Area, because there's so many microclimates. So, wherever you are, particularly if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you are going to notice externally change, the physical world. From autumn. Right now all the trees are orange here, but soon there's going to be no leaves left. Everything will be bare. The light is changing, it's getting darker. About a week after the 21st, it'll start getting lighter again. So things are just constantly moving. Some changes are really obvious. You see, my niece had a baby a little while ago. Now that baby's almost sitting up. And things happen very quickly. People get old. People die. Buildings and bridges wear out and fall apart. You'll notice in your own home, things start to deteriorate after a while. And, as I said earlier, the environment changes from one season to the next. So the source of the external transformation can be traced to the cellular level, the molecular level. Where change is not so obvious, we can't see it. But at this level, which is invisible to our eye, tiny, tiny particles, molecules, they're constantly moving and changing and going in and out of existence and gathering and dispersing and expanding and contracting. And the world is always in motion, always fluctuating. And we walk on a ground that we think is solid, but if you actually looked at the data for slight tremors here in California, you'll see the ground is always moving. So also internally, we're constantly changing. How were you when you woke up this morning? How was your mind this morning? What were you thinking as you were waking up? And is it different now, or are you still feeling the same? And sometimes we're just really happy and delighted and joyous. And other times we're not. We have memories of conversations and events and thoughts of the future and ideas, and they fill our minds, these stories one after the other. And then if we look inwards for a minute or two and you see how quickly everything is changing. It's almost like a railway station, like a rush hour on the subway. So streams of thoughts and feelings and perceptions flash by unceasingly. So constant change is something that we find very difficult to accept. But it's just really change is the only stable thing that we have in our life. So intellectually, it's not a problem. Oh, yeah, impermanence. We all throw that word around. Yeah, impermanence. But real acceptance of permanence, impermanence, doesn't really settle in our heart. We cling to things and people and situations as if they are permanent and unchanging. So we don't want that nice person, our beloved, to change. We don't want our relationships to change. We don't want that beautiful brand new phone or iPad or piece of clothing to change. We don't want our beautiful house to change, our situation. And we firmly believe that the person we don't like, who's very, very irritating, is ever going to be any different. And sometimes when we get into a state of depression or dissatisfaction, or we feel stuck, we think when it's going to be that way forever. So we cling very strongly to our own view of our own personality. Oh, I am a depressed person. I am an angry person. I'm not very smart. But that's not the whole picture. We're so much more than that. And it won't always be like that. It's going to change. So when we don't recognize impermanence, I wouldn't even say recognize, I would say when we don't just kind of allow our minds to accept impermanence, we always get frustrated and irritated and grieved and lonely and countless other problems. And we can avoid experiencing them by becoming just a little bit more familiar with the transitory nature of things, gradually recognizing that they are in a state of flux always. And I think that for me, the easiest one is just to observe the change in the weather as we move from one season to the next. It's almost like we're in winter and then all of a sudden you'll start to see signs of spring months before. So spring doesn't just happen on a certain date, but already little plants and seeds in the ground are getting ready to bloom again. And we also often don't count the fact that we have the power to change and we have the power to develop and transform our minds and our lives. So now bring your attention back to your body. So think of its many different parts. So you externally you have your arms, your legs, your head, skin, and then inside you have bones and nerves and muscles. So just, examine them, one part at a time. And think about the substance of them, their texture, their shape, their size, the size of your fingernail. And just notice and tune in to your body as it's working to keep you breathing. The movement that's occurring second by second, the beating of your heart, your breath, your blood. And so now tune in a little bit further, and at the more subtle level of its cellular structure, we are entirely composed of living cells coming into existence, moving about, reproducing, dying, disintegrating. And we have atoms and some subatomic particles, and these are in constant motion. So try and really get a feeling for the change that's actually taking place every moment in your body. I think when you were a child and you were, say, 7 years old and you looked yourself in the mirror and you went to bed and you went back to the mirror the next morning and you were the age you are now, you'd probably get quite a shock. But that change has happened over 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. Slowly, gradually. So now think about your mind. And it's also composed of many parts. We have thoughts, we have perceptions and feelings and memories and images flowing one after the other, just continuously. So let's just sit for a minute and observe your mind. Just observe how everything changes, how it's flowing. You know, like as if you were looking out of a window onto a busy street, watching the cars and the pedestrians walking by. Try not to cling to anything in your mind. Don't freeze that person that's walking by your window. Don't judge or have opinions about your mind. Just observe it and try and get a sense of how it's impermanent and changing. So now move your mind to your outer world and think about your immediate surroundings, your cushion, your chair, if you're sitting on your bed, the floor, the walls, the windows, the ceiling of your room, your computer, any other objects in your room. And consider that even each one of these is appearing to be fairly solid and fairly static. It's actually a mass of tiny, tiny particles just moving around. Stay with that for a minute. So now move your awareness further out, outside your room, outside your home, and think of other people. Their bodies and minds are also constantly changing. They're not staying the same for even one moment. And the same is true of all living beings, such as animals, birds, insects. And think of all the inanimate objects in the world and in the universe. All the houses, the buildings, the roads, cars, trees, the mountains, oceans and rivers, the whole earth, the sun, the moon, and all the stars. All of these things are composed of atoms and other minute particles. They're constantly changing. Every moment, every millisecond, nothing stays the same. Nothing is without change. Sometimes change can, this idea of thinking about change, impermanence, can be a little scary because we think we're moving into the unknown. Excuse me. But it is known. Change is known to us. We've all experienced it. We experience it every single day. So as you're meditating on this, every time you have a clear, strong feeling of the ever-changing nature of things, hold your attention firmly on it for as long as possible without letting your mind be distracted. So, in other words, stabilizing meditation. Try and soak your mind in the experience. And then when your attention starts to fade or wander, you can kind of move to analyzing the impermanence of your body or your mind or another object. So we'll just do that for another 3 or 4 minutes. So we can conclude the meditation by thinking that it's pretty unrealistic to think that we can cling to things as though they are permanent. So whatever is beautiful and pleasing will change and eventually disappear. So we can't expect this to give us lasting happiness. It's almost like we can't trust, really. The only thing we can really trust is impermanence and change. And also, whatever is unpleasant and disturbing isn't going to last forever either. And it could change for the better. So it's always a good idea when something unpleasant or difficult is happening to just take a step back and observe. Just examine it, knowing full well that it will change. So let's just dedicate any positive energy, any insights, any creative energy that you may have experienced in this meditation, and just dedicate it to all those people of your life and all the sentient beings. Okay, everybody. Mary, thank you so much for hosting. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. Lots of love, and I will see you on Tuesday. Okay, thank you.